Live from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Total Education Show, the talk shop for teachers, parents, and administrators. Here's your host of the show, Neil Haley, the Total Tutor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter @TotalTutor and neilhaley.com. Television, radio, that's always going to be the fun thing unless I have in-studio guests. But again, we're putting out our whole episodes for the entire week of awesome broadcasting. So I was first excited to welcome the program my co-host, Peter-Elvidge. Peter, we got to go to Hollywood celebrity now, right? We've done everything. We in this process, from educators, we have to fit everything in that's part of the Neil Haley Show, right, Peter?
Yeah, true that. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so I do have my guest on the line. She is going to be in Rogue Warrior, Robot Fighter, Sony's Pictures. I'm excited to welcome to the program Tracey-Birdsall. Tracy, thanks for calling. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Tracy. Now, it's interesting looking at your bio. You did some acting, you did some modeling, then we're going to get right into the film. But some of the experience you've had have been quite interesting, haven't they, in your career in entertainment?
You know, it's been a journey, that's for sure.
A journey, but I saw some of the experiences you've been on, and it's got to be exciting where it's going now, right? You kind of were doing some modeling and then some commercials, and then did you get out of the acting business for a little bit and then came back? Explain that story a little bit to us.
Well, no, actually, you know, you have to pay the bills. And so when you're between jobs and stuff like that, you have to do that which you're asked to do. I mean, sometimes you do jobs because they're your passion and you get to create these deep characters, and sometimes you do things because, you know, you have to put food on the table, and, you know, there's gaps between things when you're, you know, when acting is your career. I've been doing it since I was in my teen years, was when I joined the union. But, you know, every actor out there, we all have our success points and we all have our lulls, you know.
What would you say, Tracy, now where things are really going well for you? What did you do differently, you think, than is it just going and working and working and working and waiting for those opportunities to come?
It's not. There's no such thing as waiting. It actually has to do with training and experience and things like that. And I've studied every method out there, right? I mean, years of this and years of that. I worked with a coach named Margie Haber, you know, 5-6 years ago. And Margie was just kind of the turning point in my life where I started just really living my characters. And I've literally been working ever since then. I haven't auditioned since then. I have projects sent to me. It is more difficult. You know, it takes a toll on you. It's emotionally draining and physically draining and everything else, but it's so much fun and it's so exciting. So I think that anytime that, you know, people that are in our industry do have lulls, you need to stop and look at yourself and say, okay, what do I need to do? You need to constantly be training. You need to be constantly having life experiences and constantly studying people and characters. And, you know, I think I work 100 times more than most people in my industry. I just really, really, really develop my characters and you know, really, really learn my lines long before I develop my characters, so that when the character's talking, it's really the character that's talking. It's not me trying to remember anything. It just kind of comes naturally at that point. And so I think that's the difference.
All right, let's talk about Rogue Warrior, Robot Fighter, and talk to us about the film and your character.
Sure. It's a science fiction film, which is my favorite genre. And we actually have opening night tonight, and I'm in Los Angeles. And it's a science fiction film that depicts the you know, it's in the distant future. It depicts the overthrow of humanity by artificial intelligence on multiple worlds, not just Earth. So there's a lot of traveling. There's a lot of, you know, and it's really about finding that weapon that will end the overtake of humanity. And it's a very physical movie. It's very action, but it's also very character-driven science fiction, which we don't see a lot of. So it's kind of a heavy drama set inside of self-discovery set inside of an action-based science fiction film.
Interesting. Peter, question for Tracy.
Yeah, well, I guess this is a little bit of I used to be a movie reviewer here in the state of Minnesota, and I was the blind movie reviewer here. So I've just been interested in all sorts of different movies. Even before that, I've always been a movie person. But this is probably a little bit of that coming out in me. But I'm just generally curious from a viewer standpoint. I've kind of, I've heard the premise of the story before. Like humanity gets taken over by AI. Like, what are some things that are like basically taking the new movie and kind of breaking the mold, so to speak, of previous predecessors to your movie? To start off from a character standpoint, because people are always like, comparing, my character to this, action science fiction person in that one. I tried to create somebody new, somebody different, somebody that wasn't really based upon any of those other things. So I think that's one of the things that initially sets it up differently is I didn't try to be like anybody else. I tried to make the character stand out on its own. And, when we're dealing in a world right now where everybody walks with a cell phone in front of their face and we're learning to trust AI. And the difference is this isn't just robots. It's actually artificial intelligence that permeates not just mankind, but even I'd call it a mutation of mankind and artificial intelligence. Yes. And so much of this film is practical. There's very little green screen in it. And that's so that you can get lost in that journey and lost in that world. And I think it's very different than anything out there. I think it's something that people will compare other films to, just because it is different.
You really had to continue to train yourself for the action scenes in this film. Is that correct, Tracy?
Oh my gosh. It was actually brutal physical activity, and I didn't really anticipate it because I'm an actress, but I hadn't done action before. But I was a tomboy growing up, and I am a bit of a gym rat, so I felt like I was prepared for it. And I'll tell you a silly mistake that I made, and that is I'm used to doing scenes over and over and over for the angles and the aerials and this, that, and the other thing. It never once occurred to me that I was going to have to run down those few 100-foot sand dunes 10 times in a row. It never occurred to me.
Wow.
I just thought, coverage, da-da-da-da-da. I'm used to doing it in the, in the talkie scenes and stuff like that, but that was brutal, and it's like the injuries, like when you see the character get injured, I just brought my injuries to work with me. What are you going to do? Just my character is just a little more worn down in some days than others, and that's real. And there was many days where there was bloodshed on this thing, and it just happens. And I was like scenes like you're running down these mountains and you're having these brutal battles, and there was this one time when I got 15 feet down the hill, and I'm sponsored by New Rock, so I have these big chunky boots with heels on, and I fall down at this particular point, and I get down to the bottom, and the director's shaking his head. He's like, no. He's like, you fell down. Maybe 50 feet too soon. I'm like, I fell. It's like I decided to just continue on with the scene because you can't exactly stop and walk back up, and But so those were the things I didn't take into consideration. But it pushed me physically to an extreme that I wasn't used to being pushed to, and I have to say I enjoyed it.
That's fantastic. And do you expect to do more sci-fi movies after this, especially with the feedback
we did another one. Okay. Absolutely. We have the Time Wars in post right now, and that's actually Adolf Hitler traveling through time in order to rewrite history. My character had... Oh, yeah, it's really dark, actually. But I like that. I like drama in science fiction. I think that it's really interesting because I grew up watching Star Trek and Star Wars and Logan's Run and all these other things, and I love that genre. But to be able to bring deep storylines and develop deep characters in it, I just think that it's a fantastic place to play.
And Tracy, I think you love the go, Peter.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I was just thinking I'm always interested in learning characters wise and learning about the stories. For the movie, because it's humans versus AI, how did you guys kind of designate what I guess human reactions were versus what reactions the AI would have? Did the AI actively talk, or was it more so kind of a visual, what they do kind of thing, says what they're, what they are doing or action, if that makes any sense?
I think so. You don't always in film, in this particular film, you don't always designate or know artificial intelligence from the humans at a certain point. And so the only thing that I could do as an actress was, even when I'm dealing opposite something that's, not actually a physical being, is I make it as real to me as possible. Because if I'm not buying it, you're not buying it watching it. And so I have a sidekick in the film that is actually a little round robot. You might have seen him in the poster and the trailers. And he's still sitting next to me in my office, but I brought him in here and put him on a stand for months before we started shooting. And I would talk to him, and I'd make people greet him if they came in and out. And it was just one of those things where he had to be real to me, and he is real to me now when I look at him. And when I'm talking to him, I feel like he's real, and I think that's one of the things that really comes across in the film.
You're definitely doing that for sure, Tracy. Best place we can find information on you. Good luck tonight with the premiere, and I know it's going to be available very soon, June 6th in Walmart and stuff like that. But where can we find information on the film and yourself, Tracy? Where can we go?
Okay, yeah, it's actually June 6th in Walmart exclusively for 60 days, and then it goes wide. I think you can pre-order it on Amazon for August. You can go to tracey-birdsall.com. You can catch me on Twitter at tracey-birdsall1, Instagram tracey-birdsall1, and Facebook tracey-birdsall official.
Well, best of luck when your next film comes out. We'll keep talking and chatting about it. So thanks for taking the time today.
Of course. Thanks for having me, and have a great day.
Take care, Tracy. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay,
You're listening
bye.
to The Neil Haley Show, watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a minute. Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter at Tutor and neilhaley.com, and I'm first excited to welcome the program my co-host, Peter-Elvidge. Peter, we got a really exciting guest for us today, so are you looking forward to him?
Oh, I definitely am. It's awesome for me being here, and I'm ready to get to some awesome chatting.
All right. I love working with Triumph Books, so I'm excited to welcome the program author Matt-Cerrone, author of the New York Mets Fans Bucket List. Matt, thanks for calling. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you doing?
Fantastic, Matt. Let's jump right into the whole process of thinking about the New York Mets. I am a huge fan of a certain era of the Mets, and we'll talk about that era for sure in our conversation. But Matt, tell us your background and a little bit about who you are and why you wrote this book.
So I grew up a Mets fan, obviously, and in Connecticut. I'm 41, so I came of age in the 80s and then suffered through the 90s and was in love with the late 90s Bobby Valentine, Mike Piazza era Mets. And when I moved out of market in the early 2000s, I was down in D.C. I started a blog about the Mets. It was a hobby for a school project. I kept writing it when the class was over, and because it was fun and I was enjoying it, it was a nice way to sort of stay connected to the news cycle. The site began to grow. People were reading. Blogs were somewhat new at the time, so I think, it kind of caught on. As I started making a little money with the site, I approached the team's newly launched television network to try to see if there was a partnership. I was struggling with access. They were struggling to build an audience online. We found a way to work together. In time, they ultimately purchased the site, hired me to be their director of digital content. And, I kept writing Mets blogs, I kept doing it, and it just kept growing. And so I kind of stumbled into this career of digital media and building content businesses to connect with sports fans and stuff. And I had always along the way kind of punted or avoided writing a book because, as a blogger, I write in sort of short bursts, very in the moment, and I never really could get my hands or head around any particular project. But this one came to me by way of a literary agent who was terrific, and it's a series of books that Triumph has put out. So there's a beat writer that wrote a Yankees book very similar, a Red Sox writer wrote a Red Sox one. I'm not a beat writer. I'm a fan, and I write about the team like a fan. And I have press access, and I go and I do all those things, but I'm still a fan. So I think they were a little concerned. They were nervous. They didn't know how it would work. But ultimately what the book became was this great opportunity for me to write about all these different fan experiences that fans should have or know or be aware of from a fan perspective, but then also add some information and some, insider kind of stuff from the team as well. And so it was a great project to be part of.
And that's awesome. And Peter, you just chime in anytime you have a question for Matt, for sure. The first thing I want to talk about, Matt, is my favorite time as a Met fan, or I guess the Mets I love, were the Doc Gooden days, the Darryl Strawberry days, that character team, that amazing Mets team. Was that one of your favorite teams of all time as a fan of the Mets?
Well, obviously. I mean, how could you not? And it's funny how that team has their legendary status has become something in sports, let alone among Mets fans, that is just, it's iconic. The partying and the books that have been written about that team and the stories that have come out have only, enhanced, I think, the memories that we have as Mets fans. And I was 10, so I was young, but, that was my introduction, basically. So I thought, wow, this is amazing. What a great story and thrill ride is wonderful. And then the subsequent, 15, 20 years or whatever would not be so wonderful. So
right.
It was actually a great way to prepare for being a Mets fan, which is, hey, this is awesome, and now you're going to suffer for, a decade. So, that era was just terrific. I mean, the excitement and the miraculousness of it. People forget they were dominant. And then we're the underdogs, all within, a week of each other. And so, it was a wild ride. It was awesome.
It was definitely a wild ride.
I was just wondering, because being a fan of, and then creating the book, I was reading and I was checking out that there are activities and things you can do remotely if you can't, actually be where the team is. What are some of those so you can kind of start getting involved if you maybe are a fan, or maybe if you're not a fan and you're kind of looking to get into being a fan?
Well, yeah, I think that actually the 86 team is a great place to start, because if you can get your hands on, I think if you search Vimeo, you can find it. I reference in the book one of the bucket list items actually is the 1986 Year to Remember yearbook, basically video. And it's done in a way that, at the time, Major League Baseball was sending cameras around to sort of document teams, and the Mets were one of them. And I go into the details of that in the book. The way it came together was very interesting. We take for granted that kind of stuff now, but back then, that was a big deal. And they put this video together that really did a wonderful job of capturing sort of the goofiness of the 80s, but the drama and the seriousness of the season and the fun that team was having. And what's great about it is that it's not about the off-field shenanigans. It's not about the partying and all that, because no one really knew yet about all those things that hadn't come out. So the story in that video is very much about on-field and the fans and the fun and the music, and just everything 80s about it was terrific. And it's a great little introduction into, I think, part of what the modern Mets fan is about. Not the Tom Seaver 60s Mets, but really sort of my age group, 40, and and it's just terrific. So if you can find that, to me, that has nothing to do with buying a ticket or going to a game. That's just finding it online and watching it. It's just high comedy, entertainment, drama. It's terrific.
Yeah, and see, Matt, Matt, on the field, the Mets on the field were just such an amazing team when you talk about the era, and then also the newest era of the Mets that almost won it all, right? So you have both the 80s and you have the current Mets from a couple of years ago that really shocked the world and brought back the Mets folklore, right?
Yeah, it started to shift. We came out of that decade and a half of the Yankees, 2 decades, I suppose. I blocked some of it out. Of them just dominating really all of New York sports outside of a couple, football giants moments. I mean, it was all Yankees all the time. And, that started to fizzle and they started to rebuild. And at that same time, the Mets were finally coming out of this rebuild of their own, and these pitchers were kind of coming of age, and, they were finally starting to spend a little money after a few years of austerity and kind of getting their financial house in order. And it all just came together a little quicker than I think people expected, Mets fans included. They find themselves in the World Series, and then ultimately what happens is all of our collective expectations get raised. And the last couple of years have been a little frustrating. There's been a lot of injuries and a lot of things that, you kind of always assume that there's this natural progression. Okay, we rebuild, we get to the World Series, we lose. All right, next year we'll win. then will become, the next dynasty. Well, it doesn't always work that way, and I think we're seeing that now. And, but that's all part of being a sports fan, too. So, yeah, the Mets are sort of back, on the headlines and in the hearts of Mets fans, in the hearts of the city. If they could just get that world championship or get back into that, that success circle, I think it'll really solidify it.
Matt, where's the best place we can find information on you and also try and folks to find out about the book and stuff? Where can we go?
Absolutely. Well, to find information on me, you can go to matt-cerrone.com. It's 2 R's on matt-cerrone.com. The book, you can do matt-cerrone.com/Metsbook, and that'll get you right to Amazon. And then for my Mets stuff, metsblog.com. I mean, if you're looking for day-to-day news and reaction, what you should be thinking, a little bit of context of what's going on with the team, metsblog.com is without question the place to go. And so, those are the three things. But matt-cerrone.com/Metsbook to get you to the Amazon page.
All right, Matt, thanks for calling. Take care, and best of luck.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anytime.
Take care. Okay, bye-bye. You're listening to the Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter, @TotalTutor, and neilhaley.com, and I'm excited to welcome to the program my co-host, Peter-Elvidge, and we're recording a lot of simulcast TV, radio today. Can you believe it's almost summertime, Peter?
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's almost summertime, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm also looking forward to this set of interviews today. It's gonna be awesome.
Yep, and as you know how this business works, we're just waiting on the first caller to call in, and sometimes they call in a little late on certain things. So I wanted to talk about something, Peter, that just for people to understand what's happening with you now. Since the last time I interviewed you, you've really made some changes in your life. Give us an update on what's going on there.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of growth in the network, the Perseverance Network. There's also been some new opportunities. I'm going to be teaching here in the state of Minnesota in a little bit, coming August, on Intro to Blindness and Visual Impairment. So that's going to be something new. And I'm also making different sets of videos and content available on YouTube and online as well. So amongst those opportunities, there's also been some other work that I've been doing with the Minnesota Historical Society, and there's just been tons of stuff going on.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the really cool thing. What's happening with you, Peter, is the teacher end of thing. When we met, you were an educator in a way that you liked to educate people, but now getting the opportunity to really step out of your comfort zone and teach many people, it's got to be exciting for you.
Oh, definitely. Well, and the thing is I was, at first, because everyone's been telling me, you'd be great as a teacher. And I'm just like, are you sure? Yeah, you'd be great as a teacher. So I'm like, well, let's try it out.
Exactly. So tell us what class you'll be teaching very soon.
Yeah, so it'll be Intro to Blindness and Visual Impairment. Basically, I'm still in the creation. I'm kind of like creating the flow of the class, but basically the idea is kind of giving a kind of just a rush course of what it means to have blindness and visual impairment. Part of it being that it's connected to the Historical Society is making and explaining like how things are accessible, kind of like an example of kind of like a quick, rough example of life as someone with blindness and visual impairment. So,
oh wow!
And I have a fun experiment which I'm going to do with blindfolds. I'm going to have some volunteers, and I'm going to blindfold them and give them different scenarios to kind of try out, and it's interesting.
Exactly, and so I think it's very interesting in the fact that what you deal with every day. Later today on the radio/television network, we're going to have someone that is hearing impaired and learn about his business and what's happening with innovations. But yourself going through what you have gone through from partially blind to almost completely blind now, that's a hard transition for you, especially how visual a person you were. it
definitely bites, but at the same time, I'm like, it's in a weird way, it motivates you to be like, you know, I still love what I want, what I do, and I'm going to figure out a way around this, and I'm going to figure out a way through it. And it's really hard to explain, kind of like outside of being in the situation. But that's just like the general idea. Is you like, I love art so much, I'm still figuring different ways and creating actual programs to do my art completely non-visual. I'm still creating pixel art pieces that are small and, you know, progressing to larger sizes is my plan coming up.
So you still can see some, and you're learning through numbers and specific ways. I think our listeners out there don't understand, once you hardly can see, it's pretty much you have to learn code in your mind in certain ways to figure things out, especially when you're talking about the digital world, right?
Yeah.
Explain that to people.
So when you have low vision or you're completely blind, you use these things called screen readers. And basically screen readers will allow you to manipulate and view different texts, different web pages, all these different things. In my aspect, for my art, I've had previous experiences with color. I've had previous experiences with RGB code, which is why I'm still able to do the art that I do, because I'm using RGB code as well as the designations of the colors to do different things. But with screen readers, though, you can, you know, that's how I do all my stuff, whether it be on the mobile, on the phones, on the iPad, on a computer. It's just, you know, it's really interesting. And then kind of branching off from there are different devices, you know, that will designate colors for you, designate money for you. And it's just, you know, technology is growing to incredible heights.
So, Peter, it's through touch?
So,
is it through touch, Peter?
So primarily without technology, learning-wise is by touch, at least in my personal realm of things. It goes from touch and then it goes to hearing. Because touch is kind of centralizing yourself in your world. Like if you're just sitting and you're not touching anything, you get disoriented. And the hearing part of it is, you know, also another way of kind of designating where you are in the world. Because obviously, if you have low vision or you're completely blind, and this is even true for people who have had blindness ever since they were born, you get disoriented or you can feel lost at times without kind of having a benchmark as to where you are in the world, so to speak.
So that's interesting to talk about voice. A lot of people when they think of a blind person, they think about Braille, right? They think about everything that they have to do has to be involving touch. But you're saying now with the way technology has changed and that it's a lot to do with hearing as well then, right?
Yeah, well, you see, because back then, like, we didn't have, you know, really advanced screen readers. There would be tons of things that would be inaccessible besides basic text files. And now that screen readers have enhanced so much, you know, we can have them on the mobile, we can have them on the desktop.
Right.
And it's really, it really depends on the person. But like I said, my realm, I like touch and then hearing. But it's kind of finding that balance right now. But it is changing. Like when people think of blindness or visual impairment, they kind of think of Braille or they think of the white cane, and they don't really necessarily know about, you know, screen readers or different technologies that are out there. And then when they learn about them, or learn about someone who's doing impossible things, it's, you know, that's what I want to do, is I want to educate people on those particular technologies, because it's, you know. So
explain, I might not understood what, Peter, a screen reader is. Explain that to our listeners out there and viewers.
Yeah, so think of it like this. So a screen reader is like if you have a text document in front of you, and let's say you have like an essay that you're reading or writing, one of the two. The screen reader will basically analyze that text document, and you can either have it read to you auditorially by paragraphs or by its in total encompassing text. There's also numerous different settings that with screen readers, because screen readers are also visual as well as auditory, because they give also like color contrast features.
Right.
They give speed of the text rate that you hear it at or you read at. Also with screen readers, they will allow you to highlight words while you're reading. So if you're slightly visual and then you're hearing it auditory-wise, you can do it that way as well. It's a lot of stuff for people with dyslexia also use screen readers and different types of screen reading technology. So, yeah, and you can do this with like PDFs. You can do it with emails. You can do it with web pages.
So
basically anything that's
somebody
kind of
speaking. So, Peter, for layman's terms, someone. So, for example, if you're reading an email, it's reading it for you. Then, correct?
Yep. So basically, Screen Reader is a program that creates a computer-generated voice for you that reads whatever text you're looking at, whether it be an email or a text document. It'll read it to you. So then, if you can't either physically read it with, with paper, you can use it that way to access your different types of work-related tasks or different types of information.
That's so cool. I mean, I think it really helps. And this technology was not around 20 years ago, was it?
No, and that's why like when people think of blindness or visual impairment, they think of Braille and they think of the white cane.
Yes.
And that's that's true. With the evolution of things, not only from the standpoint of people consuming information with technology, it's also made people able to do incredible things like sports or
absolutely,
be an artist, and it's just crazy. And the thing is too, if you guys are interested, with screen readers, they have these things called Braille displays, and Braille displays connect to your device via Bluetooth. Braille displays will allow you to feel the Braille, so that instead of using a screen reader, whatever text is on your screen, it gets translated into Braille into this device, and then you can touch it instead. So it really depends on your personal preference for consuming information and learning.
Well, I'm really glad I got to catch up with you, and it was, again, an impromptu interview, but I told you when you go live, you never know what you're going to do in a crazy day like this, and who knows what else, and that's why I have you along on this ride so that we can continue to give a simulcast broadcast via TV and radio. But, Peter, where's the best place we can find information on you, your social networks, and all those different things? This is your opportunity to promote. So go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a Facebook page, Perseverance Network. We have a Twitter account is at peter-elvidge Perseverance Network or PE Promotions. YouTube channel is peter-elvidge or Perseverance Network. And those are the primary places that are updated daily. So I encourage you guys to go check those out. And there are many other networks you guys can branch out from those many networks.
Awesome. It's amazing to see the growth of what you've been doing, Peter. I'm so glad you're teaching and you're educating people about blindness and visual impairment. It's a perfect theme for today. When guests don't show up, they miss out. And I understand that because I've forgotten once for a guest or didn't record things out of. How many people do you think I've interviewed, Peter, in my career? I'd say 5,000 plus or more. But it's a lot of fun, and it's fun learning, and I have more things to follow up with you and catch up with you if we have another no-show. But take care, and I look forward to our next guest coming on soon. You're watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment and some more exciting guests. Make sure you check out Peter and all of his amazing things, and we'll be back in just a moment. Hi, everyone, and we're back to The Neil Haley Show. You can check me out on Twitter at Tutor and neilhaley.com, and I have my co-host, Peter-Elvidge, on the line. And Peter definitely educated us so far in this process of blindness and visual impairment. But for our listeners to understand that you have gone through some medical issues since the last time we chatted as well. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so I have two conditions. One is called glaucoma, which deals with eye pressure, and the other one is called cone and rod dystrophy, which deals with the stem cells, cones and rods that take in your light and color reception into your eyes. And Unfortunately, there has been some degeneration in the cones and rod cells, as well as some progression of glaucoma. So my vision has changed since we last talked, but it has not stopped me from doing the things that I love and keeping as active as humanly possible.
And this is explain the difference in your vision, that certain things you couldn't do anymore, and it was so abrupt. We're expecting it, but yet it happened. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so to give kind of a good idea for those, kind of a visual difference. So when we last talked, I had the ability to view different text files or websites or things like that, as well as different photos. If I would enlarge them to a certain point, it would be rather huge for me. So I'd say I think it was probably like 60 or so point font, and I think like image sizes can vary depending on, but ever since the change, I have not been able to read. I cannot read print at all visually. I cannot see images visually at all. Basically, the idea of how I see things currently is if, like, the best way that I can explain is if you took, like, a few Ziploc bags and you put and you layered them and then you put them in front of your eyes and you tried looking around and kind of understanding, you know, your text or your computer or whatever it is. That's kind of the generalized of how I see things. But also, I do not have color perception in any shape or form. I am grayscale colorblind, so everything that I perceive is black or white. I did have this for a while at the beginning, of the year, but with the degeneration of the cones and rods, it kind of has changed contrast. So when I'm in dark places, I can't see. When I'm in light places, it might be really bright. It's really an interesting kind of thing with with all of the different adjustments in genetics and things that I've been going through.
All right, my producer informed me that the guest was on the line and it just dropped, so we'll continue our conversation. They must have been confused to understand if we're on time, we show up on time for interviews. I mean, Peter, that's an absolute no-no. We have lined up, and always when we do the TV tapings here at Bethel Park, about 15 different guests, and you don't show up. I'm telling you, my email box, it blows up with 1,000 people. But back to this conversation, it's very, very interesting. How does it make you feel? I mean, the word Perseverance Network really defines what you're doing. I keep telling people, I have someone working for me. Well, he's blindness and visual impairment. What are you talking about? He's going blind. And a lot of people couldn't imagine the things that you do for me every day. And they would think, oh, how can this person be able to do that? Because, again, they're not educated. But how have you persevered through? You talked about this just abruptly happening to you. How are you persevering through?
Yeah, well, and like I said, to even remotely get to the mindset that I'm at, it took a long time and long, just kind of looking at myself. Obviously I had my period of time where I was down. I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do for a job, my future, all this different stuff. Because right when it was about 7 years ago when all this started, I was going to college. I was going for graphic design and arts, and all of a sudden everything just went to a halt. And and I had a long time where it was just, like I said, it was down. I kind of had to get through that, and of course everybody, does. But I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to experiment. I'm going to try to do some art, because I want to try to do it again. I still have a little bit of vision. Why not? And I basically took the longest days and nights looking at YouTube, looking online, and everything like that, learning about what pixel art is. And because I figured out how to do that, and because I figured out how to do my art again, I'm like, you know what? I got to keep going. This is, it was such a triumph getting my first piece done. And after that, it was progressive things after that, like reading documents or, and the good thing is that this transition was not as horrific as it could be, because I do have previous training experiences to build off of. But, it's been a ride, but I'm happy, despite the hard times, I've developed a great mindset. So,
so what advice would you have for somebody that has your disability? How can they persevere through this? The show, and then we'll explain some of the things that you do for me on a regular basis and other clients. Explain to me how they're able to, how other people can get through this. Because, again, this does not mean a death sentence. This does not mean, even if you're born with this, it does not mean a death sentence. That you can be very productive in society, be very successful, and really transform people's lives. So tell us specifically what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, the advice I would give to someone who's going through what I'm going through is, for one, you're going to have your bad days. And as unfortunate as it is, you're going to have to kind of go through those. But every bad day, for every bad day, there's at least 2 good days, okay? And the thing is that when your vision changes, it doesn't mean that you physically yourself have to change, okay?
Right.
Just because your vision changes doesn't mean that that you can't still do things. I know incredible people that do, people ask, how do you snowboard when you're totally blind? And yet there's tons of people who do it. How do you do art despite your blindness? Yes. And particularly in that aspect, for those who are artists who go blind, I would recommend you guys going and doing a touch tour at a local art museum, because that ultimately changed things for me, because it allowed me to kind of get a new perspective of that there's a lot out there that you can do non-visually. And the thing is that, you want to do certain things. You want to achieve certain. The only way you're going to be able to do that is to get up, because when you get knocked down, you got to keep getting up. Yeah. Yeah, you got to keep getting up, because if you get knocked down, let's say to eat, right? To eat, you got to find the fridge. After you find the fridge, and you got to figure out what food you have. It's always, even the little triumphs are important. So even if you think something is insignificant at times, like, oh, I grabbed something to eat, that's a huge triumph, because you figured out how to do something non-visually or with little vision,
Tell us on a regular basis what you do for me and other clients, so that people can understand that they too can, even if they are going through challenges, they can be very productive.
Yeah, so I do a whole ton of stuff. I post on multiple social media networks, both with images, text, hashtags, links, all these different things. I also make and create my own YouTube videos, as well as videos for different clients. I do audio editing, as well as video manipulation if I need to, for any changes visually. I do the changes for videos, just so you guys are well aware. I have special templates that I've created where I use measurements on a Photoshop grid to do adjustments if I need to, non-visually. Including that, it's, doing emails, reading documents and information. It's a whole ton of stuff. It's
exactly,
and a lot of people, I understand that people like, how does he do it? And the truth is you just do it. When you get to a certain point, like I said, when I got to a certain point in my mindset, I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to learn how to do it. I might not know how to do it at first, but I'm going to learn how to do it, because it's important to me, or it's something I want to learn to better myself, and that's another thing is that I would recommend to everyone is learn something new every day, whether it be little, medium, big. It's important because you never know what you might learn could be your foot in the door somewhere.
And that's such a never stop learning, and that's what's important about the Total Education Network, Neil Haley Show, and all that, is that we never stop learning. We always, if we can't figure out something, go out and find it out and do it. Don't be afraid to make that phone call. Don't be afraid to try something new. And with lots of things on the internet, you can figure out a lot of things very quickly that you could not do before. And I think that's the amazing thing is right now we're recording for television, yet we're streaming live on my website at neilhaley.com. And then we already will have a radio show produced and a television show produced, and we'll be able to tweet out social media the heck out of it later today. And then when we're in the car, for example, how would you have time to do 5 hours of TV or 3.5, whatever, I've lost track tonight, but meaning probably close to 4. And then you have the meeting, and then you have a tutoring session in your day's end. And how did you get your social media posted? Well, it's all scheduled. So I scheduled everything for the whole day, and all my clients' stuff is going out scheduled throughout the day. And you learn new things. You learn how you can take care of things and still be able to do many things that you enjoy. Again, we could check you out on the Perseverance Network, all the different social media channels, right? Tell us the best places to find you again, Peter.
Yeah, it's at peter-elvidge is my primary for Twitter, or there's at Perseverance Network, or PE Promotions is the 3 Twitter networks. YouTube is Peter-Elvidge or Perseverance Network. Facebook, we have a page called the Perseverance Network, and another important one is Instagram, which is the Perseverance Network as well, and that is growing to incredible numbers as well. So I encourage you guys to go check out all those networks for great content.
You're fabulous, Peter. And I think it really will relate to the episodes for this season. If I consider this a season on the Neil Haley Show on BPTV and also all over the world, is that we're going to learn about, we've learned about blindness and visual impairment. We're going to learn about hearing impaired. And our guests will have an interpreter on. So, and we'll be talking autism today. So a lot of fabulous things. I think you fit into the theme far better than the guests that no-showed me today. And I had never had 2 in a row, but I guess it's a good thing because you have a larger following and you'll get it out there and you'll really educate people with this podcast and video for people to learn more about you. So, and so everything works out for a reason. So take care, Peter, and we'll talk soon. Hi, everyone. We're back to the Neil Haley Show with Peter-Elvidge. Peter, I tell you, we have made it through this amazing thing. I want to thank BPTV for always these exciting interviews and fun stuff. And we talked to a lot of interesting people today. And I'm excited to welcome the program, Peter, someone that you're going to really like talking with, Toni-Quest. Toni, thanks for calling. You're an author and artist. Peter himself is an artist as well, Toni. I know you've been listening to some of the other interviews. Yeah, so you guys have something in common. So, Toni, tell us a little bit about your latest book, but also we can chat a little bit about your art in the short period of time we have with you today.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. My latest book is Actualize, A Life in Progress. And it was published in 2014 on Christmas Eve morning, I'll say. And I'm really proud of this book, and I'm really happy I actually got it done. It's a life story, like a memoir. I think from the point of view of myself, the many angles as an artist, as a person, and also as a person that sort of reached an age that I guess it's one of those big numbers, you know?
Absolutely.
And it was written purely to inspire. You know, I guess if you read the book, you'll find that way, but people have been clamoring to me to write a book for a long time, and finally I did it. I mean, I don't think there's anything real romantic about that part, but I do feel that it's candid. I feel it's very, sort of there's a nakedness about it that I felt compelled to present myself as I wrote this book.
I wonder, when, like, creating the book and then kind of having that artistic side as well, because this is something that I'm finding is that I write about my own experiences at times. And I find that there are just times that you can't describe something in a word format that you actually have to put into more so of a visual or artistic format. At any time when you're creating the book, did you ever run into that where you're like, you know, I'm not sure how to put this in here, so maybe I'll create something visual, maybe as a compensation? it's just something I've always done. At least when I can't figure out how to say something, I would make a visual representation of how I feel instead.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I just have learned, I guess, over the years that not everyone has the I'll say propensity to think abstractly, and I've sort of learned that most artists, I feel, at least for myself, much of my work is social commentary, and very often it's done from a point of view, and there's, even if it's representational, there's something abstract about its meaning. And in writing a book, which is sort of like taking the same person, the same mind, the same experience, articulating it so maybe anyone can understand it and relate to it, if that makes sense.
It does. Definitely. And how do you want to educate people in art, do you think, Toni? What is the mission for you for people to understand that are, primarily visual artists, not as much the other types of artists, author. You're an author as well, but meaning author or filmmaker or certain things. How do you want to, for that art genre?
In terms of my painting? Well, I'll tell you, in terms of my painting, I've just learned that it's really about metaphors. And in a course that I teach, self-actualizing portraiture, I could have a student or students that are really, really astute in terms of presenting something that's representational. Could look like a photograph, but yet it doesn't really move you. And so I've taught how to find metaphors and inject them into the work. And so I think that as an artist, if you're working with an artist, they have an ability to think, I'd say, I hate to use this term, both sides of the brain. Most people think we're all right brain, but I think the purely genius artist, in my experience, has been one that can do that technical work and then also express the emotion. It's to bring the two things together that is a unique challenge for an artist.
Yes, definitely.
Agreed.
I definitely agree with that, and it's something that they learn your passion, right? They're able to learn your passion from what you put out in art, right?
Yes, I think so, yeah. And I enjoy instructing others, and, I've worked in some challenging instructional situations teaching art. The biggest challenge has always been myself, not being professionally trained and all. For the writing, I'll say somehow that, once I get started, that just flows, which I find interesting in itself, too. You can write in an abstract way if you do poetry, and then again, you're definitely using metaphors. But I found that finding the metaphors in life, and the metaphors in art is something, there's some divinity to that. It's sort of like a validation of things unseen.
Yeah. Something you might find interesting too, that because I was taking a look and I did see that you do self-portraits. Something that you might find interesting is, like, currently I'm working on a piece of print here in the state of Minnesota. I already did one previously, but this one I'm doing completely non-visually because of my disability of blindness. And what I'm doing to kind of designate the self-portrait is I translate it into black and white for getting an idea of what the person's face looks like, and then analyzing it with colors based upon that, and then implementing my own aspects into it afterwards. But I just thought that would be an interesting thing to know about, that there is, some artists out there that are doing actual self-portraits non-visually that you might find interesting.
I will. I know I will. And also I'm wondering, are you able to discern light or nuances in light, even though you have a visual impairment? I'm really curious about that.
I have a very low vision acuity, but I can still distinguish black and white and lightness. But as to my art, it's purely non-visual, using screen readers, RGB code, as well as photo analyzers. I create my art now completely non-visually, and I'm actually getting up to the scale where I was, where I'm making pieces that I do pixel art, so I do pieces square by square, pixel by pixel. And I used to do pieces that are 20,000 pixels to almost 4 million pixels, and I'm getting back up to that point where I'm creating these pieces again. So,
wow, that's exciting.
Programs are being developed.
It's amazing, Tony, to see his talent and how he's able to still, even though he's more and more going visually impaired, and he's been going through the health issues of losing his vision, and he's still able to be an artist, and it's a tremendous story.
It is. I would like to hear more about that story for sure. Please send me an email, because I'd really love to hear, or something, a link, because I'd love to hear more of that story. Seriously,
yeah, for sure.
I was in a competition a few years ago. Might have been like 8-9 years ago, and it was for people with disabilities. And I was in it because of my diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, and I have visual impairment in one eye, and so I got to be in this. But the person who actually won the jury exhibition did such an amazing piece, and that person, they say, was blind, and I'm like, wow. And I look at this beautiful piece. That's why I asked you about the light. They were able to capture light in a piece that they did, which is a night scene. It's just the most beautiful thing, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. That's why I asked you about the light. It's so fascinating how we compensate, really.
So, Tony, what's new with you? Updates on your books? Are you doing book signings in certain areas? What's new with the book?
Well, the book is really sort of taken a life of its own. I have done a couple of book signings. I've done one in Augusta, Georgia. I think it was in April, which was really exciting. And I will be doing another book signing here in Peaksville shortly. I'll be doing a book signing tomorrow, because it's open studios in Peaksville, New York tomorrow, for tomorrow and Sunday. So I'll be doing a book signing at my own studio. So as well as selling some art and lots of jewelry. Lots of jewelry.
Yeah. So jewelry, another thing that you love, Toni?
Jewelry design is something that found me a few years ago, I think like 7 years ago. And it seems that people are asking for a lot of my jewelry designs, which is a surprise to me. But what I've done is decided to make it special, because I think there's a big market for people to be jewelers these days, for artists to make money in this. I've sort of made mine sort of specialized in a way, just to be a little more unique to capture a certain type of a market. I try to put symbolism in the jewelry that I do as well. I use symbols and things, Just stop by. Check out my website for that, streamingwomen.com.
Yeah. Again, tell our listeners the website again.
Screamingwomen.com. Although I don't like to raise my voice, but that is the title of my website.
That's you being a screaming woman in your art, not with your speaking, but through your art. So, Toni, thanks for calling, and take care, and thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a good time, and I want to talk more. Thanks again. Have a really good day.
Take care, Toni. See you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.